post-game reaction.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is Dubs OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Shot clock at 7. Kuminga on Avdia. Back out to GP2. Got to beat the buzzer. And Kuminga, an offensive rebound. He could do that so well. Setting up Curry, and he got a 3 and a 4-point play. That is all Kuminga and his energy. What a great play.
All right, one of the few bright spots for the Golden State Warriors in this one as the Blazers wind up winning in a romp. Warriors, other than Steph Curry tonight, and maybe a little energy from Jonathan Kuminga, but other than that, woof. Bow wow, whoa, yippee-oh, yippee-ay. I mean, that is just a clunker, a stinker, whatever you want to call it, to begin the first of back-to-backs for the Warriors on this season. Portland, they win it 139-119. We welcome you in. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR on this Friday night if you want to jump in and join the conversation. A lot to get into. We can get into tonight, although there really isn't a ton to get into tonight. It was, for the most part, a no-show for the Warriors, other than Stephen Curry, who was doing everything he possibly could to keep the Warriors in the game and give them a chance to win the game. But the Warriors just call it a schedule loss, call it second of the back-to-back, call it expending so much energy last night at home to come back and beat the Nuggets in overtime. You know, this is, as we continue to learn more about this basketball team, this is an older team, and everybody knows it. And the reality of the situation is, when you have an older team, some of these games against younger, more athletic and energetic teams, especially if they're on the second of a back-to-back and especially if they're on the road, are going to be games that the Warriors are more apt to take on the chin. And, you know, you look at, a team like the Nuggets last night, Warriors are obviously going to be up for that game. It's their home opener. They're going to be up for the game in LA. The Lakers, though, not one of the more athletic teams in the league. They're playing that game without LeBron James. The Warriors are all wound up. You go get that game. I think overall you'll take a 2 out of 3 to begin the season. I think that's another mode of perspective in the first handful of games here, the fact that you would take the 2 or 3. Now, maybe you'd say Portland on paper would be one of the games you'd win. Maybe you don't beat Denver without LeBron. You do beat the Lakers. However you add it up, I think it's also an indicator that this team is just going to have to – they are going to look good, I think, at times against some of the better teams in the league. And, look, I'm not convinced that Portland is a bad team, by the way. I think Portland might be a young and up-and-coming team, certainly a lot of size and a lot of athleticism. And they were a team really in the preseason against the Warriors. They kind of ran the Warriors, and they were playing at an extremely high speed, the highest pace of anybody in the NBA. The ball movement and offense was better. They generated a lot of open threes in their first game at Moda Center in Portland on Wednesday night against Minnesota. Didn't make many of them, and the Timberwolves ran them down at the end and did what a better team will often do, which is close that game out and take it down the stretch. But you look at this one, and the Warriors are going to play better, I think, against some of the better teams, but at times some of these younger, more athletic teams are going to give them problems based on where the schedule is at. And, that's going to be the conundrum that the Warriors find themselves in. It's the big picture debate of, can this team win enough games throughout the course of 82 to put themselves in position to where they can contend for a championship with their seeding being quality enough to make that run once the playoffs start. And tonight is one of those indicators that just because you're able to win a couple of games, like the Warriors were able to do this week to begin the season, it doesn't mean that there are going to be any true automatics, and there are so few automatics. I feel like in the Western Conference this year, Portland definitely file it away, not going to be an automatic for the Golden State Warriors, at least not in 2025-26, despite the fact that the Warriors have kind of owned the Blazers over the last handful of years. So if you want to jump in and join the conversation, you can do so. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. The Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line is open there. You can jump in on the phone lines on this Friday night. We appreciate everybody who is following along. The best chat in sports here, and folks filing in with their comments on this one as the Warriors get thumped in Portland, 139-119, the final. So the Dubs 2-1 as they walk out of Portland tonight and will head home for a couple of games and another back-to-back. Warriors with 3 sets of back-to-backs in the first 9 games of the season. They've got another set of back-to-backs coming up Monday and Tuesday after having the weekend to take tomorrow off and have a practice on Sunday in the lead up to the games that are going to be played on Monday and Tuesday. And then the Warriors go out to the Midwest in Milwaukee and Indiana, and then they're back again for what's going to be another back-to-back at home against Phoenix and a game in Sacramento. So short travel there. But as we talked about a lot here the first week, the games are coming fast and furious for the Warriors. And any kind of back-to-back for this team is going to be something really, regardless of opponent, that I think you're going to have to put an added, because of the age of the roster, you're going to have to put an added unknown factor attached to it. And tonight, the Warriors really, other than Steph Curry, again, I will give Jonathan Kuminga a positive nod. I thought Jonathan Kuminga's energy and intent for a third consecutive game was in the right place. He has the dunk on Klingon. He's trying to rebound the basketball. We played the highlight of him setting up Steph after getting an offensive rebound for what wound up being a 4-point play. Like, Kuminga really has tried to bring the energy in each of these 3 games. I don't think he played particularly well, but I do think his intent and energy was most in the right place compared to anybody not named Stephen Curry on this Golden State Warriors roster. So 808 KNBR to jump in. Some thoughts on this one. Steve Kerr went with a different version of the big starting lineup with Al Horford resting in the second of the back-to-back. Quentin Post got the nod over Brandon Pajemski. So Kerr starting Curry with Butler and Kuminga, Draymond Green. So that front four, that big four that finished the game last night at home against Denver, and then Quentin Post in the spot of Al Horford. And Warriors immediately got beat on a cut to begin the game. There was turnovers, a big story of the evening in this one for Golden State is they wind up with 25 turnovers. They were lethargic. They were sloppy. They were not really hitting shots tonight, again, other than Stephen Curry. And I thought the pace and the energy and the athleticism and the length and the size and all of that, the Blazers, who have looked in the early going like a team with a plan. I don't know how good or what their ceiling can be, but I don't think this is the same pushover kind of Portland Trailblazers team that we've seen here as they've entered rebuilding territory over the last handful of seasons. I think this team's got more talent and more of a purpose than we've seen. And it doesn't matter who the coach is going to be, whether it's Chauncey Billups, who is not obviously going to be the coach, or Tiago Splitter, who took over for Billups, with Billups involved in that alleged gambling scandal with the multiple arrests that were made yesterday. So, yeah, you look at this one, just too many mistakes for the Warriors. Now, Steph had them in it still early, picking up right where he left off in the second half and in overtime last night. 16 points in 8 minutes for Steph, and that kept the Warriors right there hanging in the game. You're wondering, though, is anybody else going to wake up along this Warriors roster? And I thought a key initial moment after Steph had kept him in the game was when Steve Kerr really looking to get some other players on his roster involved in this game tonight. And he ended up with a lineup of Pat Spencer, Buddy Hield, Moses Moody, Brandon Pajemski, and Will Richard. Basically, it was a 5-guard lineup toward the end of that quarter. And Portland immediately was able to take control of the game in that moment. And I think as Portland took control of the game in that moment, it really became an uphill climb for the Warriors. It was tied at the end of the first quarter. Warriors are missing layups, completely out of sync with the group that began the second quarter. Podziemski was out there with Buddy Hield, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and Quentin Post. And then where the Warriors really allowed for this thing to get away was the end of the second quarter going into halftime, an 18-5 run for the Blazers after the Warriors had again gotten the game tied. And again, I give Kuminga a positive nod in the second quarter. He picked up a couple of really dumb fouls back-to-back, 2 fouls in about 3 seconds. He ended up with 3 fouls, and Steve Kerr said, you know what, I'm leaving you in the game. And Kuminga immediately sparked the Warriors along with Steph Curry after they had gotten down, and he had the dunk on Klingon. Curry was continuing to roll, but the Blazers stroking it from three-point range. I mean, that's another aspect of this game as you look up at the end of the night. And Portland ends up 16-34 for three-point range. They were 9 of 11 in the second quarter, in addition to forcing the 25 turnovers of the Warriors. So Portland hot from three, and I think we all knew this was going to be a difficult schedule game after the Warriors expended so much energy last night at home in overtime to come back and beat Denver. And the Warriors just didn't get enough from Jimmy Butler tonight, didn't get enough from Draymond Green tonight, and then didn't get enough really from a number of their other young players up and down the roster tonight. Brandon Podziemski really struggled and is off to, for a second consecutive year, a slow start. Quentin Post, kind of a meh game for Quentin Post in this one. Moses Moody coming back, looked rusty, playing for the first time in the regular season. And the Warriors just don't, among their young players, other than Kuminga. And the Warriors are trying to have Kuminga become this turbocharged kind of role player. And so I think in some ways it's unfair to say Kuminga's got to be somebody that needs to look to step up and try and dominate and be a top flight secondary scorer. But I think in a perfect world, you'd kind of like some of the young players to carry some of the load for the Warriors on a night where Steph is trying to provide and carry so much. And the vets didn't have it, and the young players didn't have it for the Warriors tonight. Again, I'm putting Kuminga in his own category because I think Kuminga actually played some pretty inspired, albeit not always effective basketball in his 24 minutes. I thought he really was still continuing to try and build off of the preseason and the first couple of games that he was able to have here to begin the season. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. It's JD John Dickinson. We got Kyle Haar in our San Francisco studios. We got the YouTube chat up and firing. We're going to get to Kyle's clicks coming up. We'll get to the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line coming up as well. Your phone calls as we continue. Warriors throttled tonight in Portland, 139-119, and we're talking about it right here on the Sports Leader.
Live from downtown.
Way downtown. Bang!
This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on the Sports Leader, streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
You're just in scramble mode. All the drawn kicks, the ball movement, really making you work defensively. You get tested. Kuminga with the right-handed hammer. Look out below. Watch your head. They got Kuminga on the run.
Again, one of the few bright spots for the Warriors in a game where they wind up losing by 20 to the Blazers in Portland. 139-119 is the final. We welcome you back here. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. The Warriors are 2-1. Disappointing effort in a number of ways, even if you might consider it to be predictable. And I think that was the other thing that kind of sticks out to me as we continue on here on the show into the 10 o'clock hour. We'll probably keep everything going until about 11 o'clock tonight. A little bit of a shorter show, kind of a clunker for the Dubs, back-to-back, Friday night, all those kinds of vibes here. But the Warriors are 2-1. And, yeah, really a disappointing effort, I think, coming off of a couple of big wins here to begin the season, but not unpredictable. In fact, I was kind of expecting it. We talked about it last night. Like, don't think going up to Portland was going to be some picnic with an older team, knowing Al Horford isn't going to play and knowing that the Warrior veteran players that were going to be playing were going to have a little bit less energy in the tank. And I think, that was met with a Portland team that's really trying to create, I think, a new identity for themselves in terms of how they look to play on offense. Their defense had been significantly improved over the course of last season. And I think, they felt coming into this year, they really needed to turbocharge their offense by starting to play a lot faster, a lot more ball movement and the like. And this is many of the same players that the Warriors have been able to handle here the last year or two, but a team that's playing much more connected and together and just using their strengths. And I thought this was the kind of game that the Warriors could wind up being in a little bit of trouble in if they weren't locked in from the jump and ready to go. And we saw it in the preseason when the Warriors took on the Blazers. The Blazers ran by them a lot in the preseason. And so that kind of was something I bookmarked going into this one. So give us your most disappointing aspect of tonight if you're the Warriors, and just kind of how it might change your opinion for how this team is going to have to navigate the season with the veteran core and how they're going to have to navigate some of these back-to-backs, because not only did the veteran players not named Steph Curry not have it, really the younger players not named Jonathan Kuminga didn't have it either. And it kind of creates this debate that's been such a topic of conversation over the last year or so, really since the Jimmy Butler trade and even going back years prior. It's how does this team compete on a night in, night out basis over an 82-game schedule and not have to really grind for every single win? Are they talented enough up and down the roster to be able to do that? And I think, there's been enough pitfalls here and there, whether it's been injuries that have popped up or whether it's been, scenarios where the younger players just can't step in and make up for the nights where the older players don't have the energy or the edge. So let's get to the phone lines. Let's get it tipped off here tonight with Adam in San Jose rolling on here, our tip-off caller on Dubs OT on the Sports Leader. Hey, Adam.
What's up, JD? I'm hoping this loss was a result of fatigue from the back-to-back and it being the third game in 4 nights and really not being Portland exposing our age. We kept getting blown by. We weren't able to stay in front of our man. There was just absolutely no protection in the paint. And it kind of felt like they were playing the same defense All-Stars played during the All-Star game. And then my second thought is on Brandon Pajemski. He's too busy worried about taking over the franchise past the Steph and Draymond era. It's the same stuff that got him in trouble last year. Driving into the paint late in the shot clock, looking for an outlet, pivoting, looking for an outlet, and then either turning the ball over or taking a bad shot and missing it. He needs to focus on his game because, like you say, he stinks. I'm not sure why Buddy only got 12 minutes tonight. I know he didn't have the best game either, but I have a lot more confidence in Buddy creating shots than Pajemski. And then I have a question for you. How are we going to create – I know Seth isn't signed on the roster because of salary cap space issues, but how do we make that happen? Is getting rid of Pajemski one option, or how do you make room for Seth?
Yeah, they're not going to have to get rid of anybody. It's just an issue of the prorated amount of his salary as the season goes on becomes less. And so once it reaches a point where the prorated portion of his salary, the remaining time on the NBA league year calendar, his salary basically, the max he can earn goes down each day. And so once it gets to a point, and it will here in about, I think it's around the 14th or the 15th of November, his salary gets to a point where, because he's only going to play a partial season, they can then fit it under the salary cap, what his veteran minimum for a player that's played the amount of time in the NBA that he has. So it literally is just the proration amount has to come down to a point to where it fits with what the Warriors have for the remainder of the season under the cap. And that will be able to be done again, right around that second week of November. I forget the exact date. But that's all they would have to do. They've got a roster spot open and available for him. And then he'll be on the team for the foreseeable future at that point, unless they need to go out and use that roster spot for somebody else if they have some kind of injury or something of that manner.
He gone.
All right. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it. I hope I explained that pretty well. Look, I think a lot of it was the fatigue from the back-to-back tonight, but the Warriors are just not sharp defensively. I mean, they got beat. First play of the game, they get beat on a cut, and they got blown by all night, to the point on the paint protection. The Warriors are not the kind of team that has elite paint protection to begin with, but when guys are getting run by and getting beat on back cuts and getting beat in terms of the help defense, I mean, there isn't an amount of rim protection in the world that's going to help you from that kind of an onslaught. As for Brandon Pajemski, he is out of whack. And look, I'm going to make it is very reminiscent of last year. It's very reminiscent of the beginning of last year. And look, Pajemski had a different type of an offseason. He certainly had a different type of media day compared to last year, much more focused, much more, a little bit more, quieter and edgier and not really wanting to maybe make waves. But then, the comments come out about, wanting to maybe be somebody that's a franchise headliner moving forward. And look, you can't say that kind of stuff, even if it's well meant. You can't say that kind of stuff and then come out. It just puts a target on you immediately to where if you struggle, it has the potential to snowball. And I don't think Pod's really helped himself with that. He is a player that very quickly is becoming maligned among the fan base. I think he probably gets a little too much crap on the surface, but when he puts a target on himself and then plays as poorly as he has played, and really it's really 3 games in a row that, I thought he was all right in the Laker game, but it's really 3 games in a row that I think are subpar to the Brandon Pajemski standard. And Kerr went away from him in the starting lineup tonight, which is another thing. that I think, you have to start to look at that now. Podziemski ends up, did that affect him tonight? Is that something that got in his head a little bit? Because he played worse tonight than he had at any point this season. So, yeah, Pods is in a bad way. And, I've said this about Kuminga. Coming into the year, if Kuminga doesn't play well or play the right way, the Warriors have enough other players to where he just won't play as much, if that's the case. The Warriors are trying to figure out, I think, and DeAnthony Melton's the one guy that absolutely will play over Brandon Podziemski once he comes back and is healthy. But they do have, I think, fewer options on the surface unless they're going to play a lot of these bigger lineups. And I just don't think they're going to be able to play a lot of these bigger lineups as much as maybe some in the fan base think. It worked last night. I like it a lot more with Al Horford as the big that's out there than another younger player in Quentin Post. Having 4 OGs helps you protect Kuminga, I think, a little bit if Kuminga's going to be the fifth guy out there. I know a lot of people say just start Moses Moody at the 2. I'm not sure it's necessarily as simple as that. They're looking at Will Richard, but DeAnthony Melton's the guy to where if Melton comes back, he's the guy that will start to be the Brandon Podziemski insurance. I do think they're still in a little bit of a tricky spot with Podziemski in terms of not having enough ball handlers and not having enough guys who can kind of create among the guard line to where you can just completely go away from Podziemski altogether. And he has still historically here through his career been a part of a lot of the Warriors' most successful lineups. So I don't want to overstate it, but he is not off to a good start by any means. And his joke's on you writes here in the YouTube chat, Pod's a problem on defense. In the third, Moody passed a player to him, and he just let him blow by. It has been too prevalent in these first three games. He has been a turnstile defensively as well. So you can't make excuses about it. It has not been good, and he's got to get it cleaned up, and they've got to get it cleaned up to be able to move forward here and have him be a part of a lot of these lineups that he's been a part of that have been successful, because the Warriors are counting on him. He's part of the plan coming into this season. So we shall see. Does he get other opportunities? Do they move some players around in terms of the lineups? He's been, I think, at his best with that lineup where he plays with Steph and Jimmy and Draymond and Moses Moody. So do the Warriors eventually get back to that? But, Jonathan Kuminga, at least for the time being, has earned the ability to start. So I don't think you want to necessarily pull Kuminga out of the starting lineup just to basically appease the fact that Brandon Podziemski, needs to play with those other players to be more effective. So you're going to have to weigh that, I think, as well, if you're Steve Kerr. So Warriors lose 139-119. It's John Dickinson here, Dubs OT with JD. On these sports leaders, the Warriors 2-1 on the season. They'll get the weekend off. A practice on Sunday. They play the Grizzlies and the Clippers coming up on Monday and Tuesday inside Chase Center. Once Melton and Seth can play, the Warriors guard rotation will be better. Yeah, Melton's the one. And look, Melton may be somebody that's not going to play back-to-backs. Melton might be somebody that they're really going to have to injury protect. But Melton is also somebody that can play in almost any lineup. And if there is one player on the Warriors roster that currently is the most equipped to be able to take minutes from Podziemski, it's Melton, where you're not looking to play some kind of a weird lineup in an attempt to kind of get him to be effective. But again, as frustrating as the beginning of the season has been, as much as he's put the target on his back, I don't think this is as dire a situation yet, but it's definitely not trending in a positive direction as the Warriors try to figure out maybe what some alternatives can be to having Brandon Podziemski be a part of the equation. So 808 KNBR 415-808-5627, Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line open as well as the Warriors get thumped tonight. Most disappointing aspect of this one, Kyle Haar in our San Francisco studios. Kyle, what's the most disappointing aspect of this one for you as you sit there in studio tonight and watch the game? Because I was kind of thinking about it. It was, is it the vets? Is it the young players not playing well? it really a difficult schedule game. What do you think, Kyle?
I think a lot of people after last night's game were putting in the chat that the young players had to step up this game, and Jonathan Kuminga aside, I don't think one young player really stepped up this game, and they were really just getting ran out of the building.
And here's a question. Here's the other question: are the Warriors young players good enough to carry the vets when the vets don't have it, or when the vets need a night off? Because that's the one aspect of this team that I would strongly disagree with anybody that believes that this team is built for that. Like, this team's not built for that. I don't, Moses Moody's not built to be a carrier. Brandon Pajemski's not built to be a carrier. Jonathan Kuminga, the Warriors don't want right now to be a carrier because they're so focused on him becoming this effective role player, and he's working on it. And maybe you do need to, allow for him to get more opportunities to try and score. But the problem is you don't really know it until you're in game. Does Jimmy have it tonight? Does he not? Does Draymond have it tonight? Does he not? Jimmy and Draymond, it was a low energy Draymond game. It was a low energy Jimmy Butler game. I think the one thing that's probably fortunate as you look at some of the numbers, Jimmy ended up only playing 27 minutes. Draymond ended up only playing 20 minutes. So at least you didn't burn them out tonight in the second of a back-to-back. And now they get the weekend off before the next set of back-to-backs, which is going to be coming up at Chase Center. But that would be my question. Are the younger players on this roster good enough to carry the older players when the older players don't have it? When the older players don't have the energy or need those nights off? And, on paper, you would think, no disrespect to Portland, but on paper, you would think that you'd like to see the Warriors young players be able to kind of go toe-to-toe with a team like the Portland Trail Blazers. But all of these guys that the Blazers have among their regulars, Advia and Kamara and Sharp, and Jeremy Grant is coming off the bench. A lot of these guys are younger players in their primes that are much, 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 much more experienced players than the Warriors' younger players at this point. So if it's kind of your young players versus the Warriors' young players, a lot of these other teams' young players are going to win that battle, to where you're going to need the veteran players to step up. And again, Steph Curry was the only one that answered the bell. And I think that's the other part that's a little disappointing, is when you look at Steph doing what he did to try and keep the Warriors in the game, and then you wind up seeing it be, so ugly from everybody else, and you wind up giving up 139 points, and you have 25 turnovers and all of that. Andis Brown checking in here in the YouTube chat. Blazers have a very versatile lineup and so many good wings. Warriors couldn't get any switches for any advantages on offense unless the Blazers had a big in the game. No question. I mean, I'm impressed. I am really impressed with the Blazers. Again, I don't want to overstate it, but they have a direction, they have size, they have athleticism. They're running a much better offense. Like I think this is a team that's going to be. They could be a play-in team this year. Maybe it's a 9-10 type play-in team.
Can I change my answer from last night? that the Blazers are not going to make the play-in tournament.
Sure.
I really like that. I think they have good length and athleticism. And sure,
all right, Kyle, admit it. Admit it. You didn't watch them in the preseason.
Oh no.
Admit it.
I did not.
Even against the Warriors. Even against the Warriors, you didn't.
I may have skipped the preseason.
If you watched the preseason, it wouldn't have surprised you that the Blazers did what they did to the Warriors tonight. It wouldn't. No cap 757. They were down 27 in the preseason of the Blazers. Jimmy and Steph. Draymond played. They only won because the end of the rosters outplayed them the last two quarters. That's exactly right. And Steph had that flurry in Moda Center in the preseason, in the third quarter, right? And then it basically was an even game down the stretch, and the Warriors young players were able to win that game. But yeah, no, again, it's early in the season. I mean, you look at opening night and the Jazz are blowing out the Clippers and you're like, what's going on here? The Mavs have lost a couple of games. It's early in the season, but tonight is the kind of game that if you watched Portland the other night, also against Minnesota, which I was watching a little bit of that, the Warriors were off the one night they were off here since the beginning of the season, and they went toe-to-toe with Minnesota on opening night at home, and they always tend to be competitive and have a chance to win. That's something they kind of built last year where they were playing well at home. And maybe not winning a lot of those games, but competing in a lot of those games down the stretch. So all of a sudden the Blazers look like a tough matchup for the Warriors. So file that away for what it's worth for any of these potential future meetings, especially if the Warriors are coming on the second of a back-to-back at any of these potential future meetings. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Let's continue with more Kyle's clicks here. We'll get sounds at Dubs OT coming up at about 10:30 as we roll on here on this Friday. San Jose Jazz fan 8. Warriors have had problems with mid but young teams with athletic wings for a few years now. Yeah, no, it's definitely not something new. I think the Blazers are just at a point where they're a little bit more polished and a little bit more focused in what they're trying to do, in particular offensively. And now you couple that with the athleticism and the size, and they've got enough to kind of run you out of the building, which is basically what they did tonight as that game went on. Continuing on here with more Kyle's clicks. Warriors somehow the only team that got 3 games in 4 nights to start the season, and an away game versus a rest advantage, super fast, young, athletic team. DVDV not happy. Well, it's 3 back-to-backs in the first 9 games for the Warriors as well. You had Portland tonight after Denver. And look, you're going to make up for it. There's going to be, the Warriors are basically home, all of January, I think. They're home a lot at the end of the year to get kind of lined up for the playoffs. I was a little surprised that the schedule laid out the way that it did. But whenever you're a national audience team, your schedule gets it's almost 2 schedules, right? You get that first schedule of you got to play the Lakers opening night because you got to have Steph and LeBron. Obviously, LeBron was hurt. Got to play Denver in the home opener because you need a real good, that's a marquee matchup, and those teams have played some terrific games the last few years. So you want to get Denver in, and then you still got to play Portland. You still got to play the Kings. You still got to play the Grizzlies. You still got to play all those teams. So you kind of wedge those games in around the games that have to go on Amazon night or Peacock night or whatever, NBC night or whatever the heck it needs to be. And so now you find yourself, well, when are you going to play that Portland game? Well, you got to play that Portland game tonight. And when are you going to play the Grizzlies game before you got to play the 8:00 Pacific game against the Clippers on NBC? Well, now you got to play that game on Monday night. They do have another back-to-back in the first 9 where they play at home against the Suns, and then they go to Sacramento. Those are a couple of winnable games. I know the Kings did get a 1-point win tonight at home against Utah. Domantas Sabonis back and got the game-winning putback in the closing seconds, and the Kings got a stop. So, Utah looked great the other night, and then they go to Sacramento, and it's a back-and-forth kind of a game, and the Kings can win it. So we're still trying to sort through, I think, a lot at the beginning of the year here. But, yeah, nobody should be complaining about the schedule in the first 4 or 5 days of the regular season. EB here, the great Rockets and the great Pelicans haven't won this year, so we're not too bad. Yeah, look, you're 2-1. I hate to sound like Fitz. I hate to sound like Fitz, but you take 2-1. If you said you're going to be 2-1, anyway, I'm not going to do that.
You take 2-1 if the 2 wins were against the Lakers and Denver.
You take 2-1 any way you get it. You take 2-1 with 3 games in 4 nights to begin the year any way you can get it. And to be honest, I didn't go in on it last night because the game was so terrific, and we were reacting to it, and we're at Harmonic, and we're all having a good time. But tonight was a game that I really felt strongly the Warriors were going to struggle. And it just again, it goes back to watching Portland in the preseason. I don't want to keep repeating myself on that point. I mean, watching them head-to-head against the Warriors, they ran the Warriors for long stretches of both of those games. Like, that's not nothing. So you look at it, and I think there was a little bit to see here. EB here, great, we got to that comment as well. A couple of more here before our next timeout. Joe Schmo, Blazers have some pieces to move possibly at the deadline if they stink. I don't think they're going to stink, though. But they do have some flexibility.
They do have pieces.
They do. They got a lot. They got a lot of pieces. No, they got a lot of pieces. So no, I don't think they stink. And they haven't to this point. But again, we're two games into the year, at least for them, and 3 games into the year for the Warriors. All right, couple more here before we move on to sounds at Dubs OT. The ball sticks with Pods, and he tries to do too much. He's out of whack, man. We talked about it. He's caught in between, and this is the bad Pajemski. When he doesn't play well, he takes the wrong shot. He gets caught in between. Should I shoot? Should I drive? He drives. He stops. He doesn't know what to do. He kicks it out, or he takes a bad shot, or he'll lob a grenade to somebody, and then they've got to take a bad shot. Like it really has been. When he plays poorly, it's very, very distinct, the manner at which he plays poorly, and he's in one of those modes right now, to be sure. And yeah, as Rebel DeSounds points out, the ball sticks. The ball sticks when he tries to do too much, and that's extremely problematic for the Warriors, and they're going to have to figure out. No cap 757. You don't have good young players. You all set your expectations too high for those kids. Wow. That, I think, a note to the rest of the chat, and not maybe a note to yours truly here, because again, I've said it. Like, I don't think the Warriors have any carriers among their young players. I think they've got guys that you hope can be quality role players, and you're trying to get Kuminga to accept that type of a role. But I don't think any of these guys are carriers, and I think it gets problematic when you ask them to be. And tonight was kind of the first night where it's like, oh, Draymond's tired. Jimmy doesn't have it. Steph's going off. Carry us, young players. Well, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You can't put these guys in a box, 2 nights out of 2, and then say, go win a game on the road, against some better young players, some young players that are kind of standalone talents in this league. And so, it kind of goes back a little bit to that depth conversation that we always have, which is, you got a couple kinds of depth. You got the depth you have when your guys are all playing. And I think the Warriors have that kind of depth. Or do you have the depth that you like when guys really are not playing well or aren't playing, that can plug in and just get the job done there? All right, one more here. We'll take a timeout. Bennett Roth, maybe the trade deadline this year, they will get Markkanen. Markkanen makes a lot of money now. Like, I don't know. Is that the Warriors or the Blazers?
And Draymond doesn't want to do business with Danny Ainge, or doesn't want the Warriors front office to do business with Danny Ainge.
Exactly. And No Cap says, yeah, JD, that comment was for the chat. LOL, about the kids not being good enough. So no, I think Markkanen's off the table because of the salary that he makes. And honestly, it's going to be more about finding role players that it's going to be about finding that one, not role player. It's about finding that one player that can plug into the closing lineup on a night in, night out basis, I think, for the Warriors here moving forward. All right, let's take another timeout. We'll come back. We'll get more Kyle's clicks, including our comment of the night. 808 KNBR. We still have time for some phone calls as well. 415-808-5627. If you want to jump in and join the conversation there, the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line is open as well. 415-808-5627. And Dubs OT rolling along. We'll get some sound from the Warriors locker room and the post-game press conferences as we move forward here on this Friday night, 139-119 in favor of the Blazers. And we're talking about it right here, Dubs OT on the Sports Leader.
KNBR presents the sounds of Dubs OT.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
No class, no balls.
I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court.
Now here's John Dickinson.
All right, rolling along here. Warriors get thumped in Portland by the Blazers, 139-119, as the Warriors was tied at the end of the first quarter. Warriors ended up in a tie game in the middle of the second quarter, but toward the end of the second quarter, Blazers take the game over. I thought a couple of key points in the first and second quarters. First quarter, game kind of flipped when Steve Kerr went to the five-guard lineup. With Brandon Pajemski was out there with Pat Spencer, Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, and Will Richard, and the Blazers kind of took control of the game. They didn't really relinquish it until the Warriors got a spark from Jonathan Kuminga in the second quarter after he picked up a couple of silly fouls, had 3 fouls. Kerr left him in. 18-5 run, though, to close the second quarter. A lot of blow-bys tonight for the Blazers against the Warriors defense. A lot of open threes tonight that the Blazers, I know from talking to some Portland people, were really happy with the looks they got from three-point range against Minnesota on Wednesday, and they just missed them. Only made 6, but had a lot, like in the 20s in terms of wide-open threes. So if you generate them, eventually they're going to fall, and they were 9 for 11 in the second quarter from three-point range. That 18-5 run, Blazers are up 3 going to the third. Warriors end up winning the third quarter after the Blazers jumped out to an 18-point lead from 13. Warriors down 12 going to the fourth, and Steve Kerr kind of went for it at the beginning of the fourth. He had Curry out there with Pajemski, Jimmy Butler, Kuminga, and Draymond Green in an attempt to try to make a run. And I think if they made a run, maybe he was going to consider riding out the bulk of the quarter with those guys other than a quick sub. But he wanted those guys to get him back into the game. And if they couldn't, then I think Steve Kerr was going to wave the white flag relatively early in the game. And that's exactly what happened, is the Blazers ended up with the first 6 of the fourth quarter, and the Warriors were quickly down 19. And it got ugly from there. Portland led by as many as 25 in that fourth quarter, and they go on to win it 139-119. So thoughts there, just not enough from Draymond tonight, not enough from Jimmy Butler tonight, not enough really from anybody other than Steph Curry. I did give Jonathan Kuminga a nod for, I think, third consecutive game playing with the right energy and the right intent. And then the other big takeaway here is the Warriors' young players. You know, this is something that we're going to discuss all year. Are the young players good enough to be able to carry this team when the veterans don't have it? And I think the answer, at least in my mind, is no. As much as the Warriors like those young players and their ability to have the potential to be quality role players. Let's hear from the head coach of the Warriors, Steve Kerr, though, now in our Sounds of Dubs OT. We'll get some more Kyle's clicks here between now and 11 o'clock as we roll on here and kind of wrap things up before heading on into the weekend. And then we'll reconvene at Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City on Monday night as the Warriors are going to host the Memphis Grizzlies, first of another set of back-to-back. So here's Steve Kerr first up, talking about playing a number of different players and some different combinations, and the Warriors having some guys who maybe hadn't been playing that needed to knock off some rust, and that led to some struggles.
This was a game for Moses to get his feet wet again, get back in the rhythm after missing the last couple of weeks. So, these are the type of games where you're getting blown out. There's still things that you can accomplish. One of those things tonight was getting Moses back out there and limiting everybody's minutes and looking at some different combinations. It was a tough night, but a really good week, to go 2-1, 3 games in 4 nights in 3 different cities. I'll take it, but we've got to learn from this and do a much better job handling that kind of pressure.
Yeah, it did seem like Steve was just trying to get a lot of guys involved tonight. And it was a different combinations type of a night, that kind of thing. And yeah, Moody did not look good. We've talked a lot about Pajemski. Again, I don't think Kuminga was, I think Kuminga might have been their second best player tonight. But that's nowhere near the type of effort that you want from a second best player. You did have 4 turnovers. You did have some silly fouls. Again, I think he's trying to play the right way, so I'm not in any way, shape, or form putting this on Kuminga. He again was, I think, one of the better players, regardless of what the plus minus said in terms of bringing the proper energy and the like. But yeah, it did feel like there were a lot of different things Steve Kerr was trying to accomplish in addition to trying maybe to get a win. And Steph was the only guy that really showed up, and so it kind of becomes one of those games where it's like, all right, let's get some guys, and you do try to use this as a game for Moody to get comfortable to where maybe now he is more in lockstep for a game on Monday or Tuesday, and he can help you win a game on Monday or Tuesday because he got a lot of that out of his system in a game tonight that maybe when it's all said and done, you weren't going to be able to win anyway. So let's get to another Steve Kerr quote from this one as Kerr addressing the first week for Jonathan Kuminga. And again, always going to be a big topic. I said it last night. I've been really surprised at how well Kuminga has been locked in. It has been an extension of what we saw in the preseason, and he has been a bright spot in a way that I don't think anyone truly could have anticipated, because we just haven't seen him comfortable in trying to play the way that he has here in these 3 of the last 4 nights to begin the season. So here is the head coach of the Warriors, Steve Kerr, on the first week of the season for Jonathan Kuminga.
Well, his passing has improved dramatically. He's made so many good passes, not only in games, but in practices. I think he's seeing the floor better. But I just like the approach. I like the vibe that he's bringing. He's confident. He definitely feels like part of the team and what we're trying to do after all the contract stuff. I just think his teammates have been so good, Jimmy and Steph, Dre, all welcoming him back with open arms and reminding him that contract stuff is contract stuff. So JK's had a really good start to the season. I'm proud of him, the way he's playing, and I'm excited for what's ahead for him and for us.
Yeah, and he has shown, again, to be somebody that I think can help this team this year in ways, again, that I don't think you could have really anticipated at the beginning of the year. And I think the one overarching takeaway that I think is still a positive from the first 3 games, because that's another way you can look at this, is, yeah, the Warriors get thumped tonight. Yeah, they got a couple of nice wins on Tuesday and last night, the big win over Denver. But you're also seeing a lot of the different combinations that the Warriors can play. And we're seeing, Jonathan Kuminga has never been able to play the 3 with the Warriors and be effective. He's been able to play the 3 this week with the Warriors and maybe be the most effective he's been playing the 3 at any point in his young NBA career. That allows for different player groupings to be put out there, a la the 5 that finished the game last night and help the Warriors come back and beat the Nuggets with Steph out there and Jimmy and Kuminga, Draymond, and Al Horford. So his ability to kind of almost in some ways be a pseudo point forward, he brings the ball up and kind of initiates the offense a little bit. That's been something that I think, in line with what Steve is talking about as it relates to Jonathan Kuminga's passing. He just is much more willing to try to not necessarily look to put his head down and go score, and making passes in the context of the offense may not be better than putting your head down and going to the cup and dunking it on Klingon like he did, but it is better than putting your head down, taking 5 dribbles and shooting a pull-up midi. And so I think that's been where there has been the most significant growth in his game. Is he taking an extra 3 or 2? Maybe, maybe. But to me, he has to, if he's going to become the player that he thinks he can be and the player that can help the Warriors. He does need to be able to at least knock down a corner 3 at a consistent rate. And then maybe the ones from out at the top of the key or the wing are the ones that he doesn't take as much. So I really don't typically have an issue with Kuminga taking the open corner 3, even if it might be deemed a little bit of a force, because that's a shot he truly has to get cut. Now, the ones way out on the wing, the ones out at the top, maybe that's a little bit of a different conversation. But I think Kuminga, in addition to Steph, in addition to some of this depth when they have everybody, I think Kuminga, you could make a case the way Kuminga is playing. And Kyle, I don't want to. I mean, the way Jimmy played on opening night was huge. The way Steph played last night and tonight is an extension of his preseason, and he was good enough in LA as well. And he kind of coasted through the LA game while Jimmy and others were doing their thing. But would you put Kuminga, Kyle, as the number 2 bright spot for this team in the first week, or is that ranked a little bit too high? Are there other things maybe we're missing here? But I think Steph for sure is number 1. What would you have Kuminga 2, or is there something you'd put in between?
I think after Jimmy's first 2 games, I would say, knowing that we have him for a full season instead of the last, what was it, 30 games of last season, like knowing that we have that extra superstar. But I mean, I think, yeah, Kuminga 2, Kuminga as a bright spot, I would put that at like 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and Jimmy's a good call. I mean, and you said it. I mean, it's just the fact that, I mean, he controlled. He was the best player on the court in LA. And he also showed everybody that the preseason and in and out of the lineup, and Jimmy don't need to play no preseason games, and he can be, walk right back onto the floor at Crypto.com Arena in LA and be the best player on the court in a game where Luka Doncic is on the court and he scored in the, pushing 50 points. So yeah, I think you're right about that one to be sure. All right, let's hear a couple of more from the head coach of the Warriors, Steve Kerr. Warriors get beat tonight 139 to 119 up in Portland, as the Warriors are now 2-1 with the weekend off. They are going to have a practice on Sunday and then take on the Grizzlies and the Clippers on Monday and Tuesday before heading to the Midwest next week for games Thursday and Saturday in Milwaukee and in Indianapolis. All right, our third Steve Kerr clip. He addresses the fatigue, which I think everybody understands is real, but also it's never comfortable to be using it as an excuse.
I think the NBA schedule is, everybody deals with whatever comes your way, and there's a lot of difficult, moments in the schedule, whatever. But tonight was not about that. It was about Portland and what they've built, and the length and athleticism and the style of play, and they were brilliant. And so, I would be embarrassed to sit here and blame fatigue when a team just came out and just took it to us. So it was about them and their great play, and this city's going to really enjoy watching the Blazers because they play hard and they've got a real identity, and they're doing a really good job of kind of rebuilding the franchise after the long run with Terry and Dame and CJ. I mean, it's been a rough couple of years, but they've used that time wisely and built a really good roster.
And you look at, Advia 26 and Kamara 19 and Shaden Sharp 17. Jeremy Grant coming off the bench, 22. Chris Murray, Keegan Murray's left-handed shooting brother, 13 points. Tybal, a plus 22 in just 15 minutes, and he's somebody that can knock down the 3-ball and be an excellent defender. They've got a decent roster. I don't want to overstate it because this is a team, but I don't want to call them a playoff team or anything. I don't want to get carried away, but I do think this is a significantly improved team over what we've seen them be the last couple of years. And, you talk to people around them, they think Tiago Splitter might, like, hey, this thing with Chauncey, as much as it's tough and it nobody feels good about it, and everybody's kind of, might feel let down by the fact that he's, not with the team. But Tiago Splitter is somebody that I think a lot of people are really high on in terms of the prospect of him being able to be a quality NBA coach. So, again, I don't want to gas up Portland a ton off of just watching them play tonight against the Warriors and watching them play against Minnesota on Wednesday night in a game that they led most of the night and ended up losing. But they're definitely going to be a team. Our early league pass, watch list. We're going to put Portland on the early JD Dubs OT here on the Sports Leader watch list. I'm going to be making sure on some nights where the Warriors are not playing that I'm keeping an eye on what Portland's doing. I think they're an entertaining young team. All right, let's hear our final clip from the head coach of the Warriors, Steve Kerr, as the Warriors get blasted by the Portland Trailblazers. And we move to Steve here, talking about what's on everybody's mind tonight. I think the most frustrating aspect of the game, certainly in the YouTube chat and in the Warriors social media sphere, is Brandon Pajemski. Steve addresses Pods tonight and what has been, I think, a poor beginning to the season for Brandon Pajemski.
Well, Brandon wasn't at his best tonight. I thought in training camp he was excellent, but because we're shifting the starting lineup, we'd shifted it tonight. I don't think there's a great rhythm for BP right now yet. It's early in the season, and that's all part of it. This getting through the 82 games, every single player is going to go through spells and good and bad, and you just have to keep moving along.
All right, so not making too much of it. It is going to be interesting. I kind of feel like Pajemski, to be his most effective, does need to start. I don't think that really had anything to do with it tonight. I'm just, and he wasn't starting tonight. I'm definitely not making an excuse for how he played tonight and saying, well, you got it. And I don't ever want to have it be, a situation where you feel like you have to coddle a young player in an attempt to get him to be his most effective. But I do like the Steph, Pajemski, Jimmy Butler, Moses Moody, Draymond lineup. And here's my thing. If Pajemski's not going to start and play with those players where he can act as a connector, I think it's actually harder to bring him off the bench, because then you're playing him with lesser players. And I think when you're playing with lesser players, being a connector isn't necessarily as relevant. And so he almost becomes somebody in a way. And again, this is not a definitive answer, but he almost becomes a player that, in a way, if you're not going to start him and maximize what he brings to the table in that fashion, then does he become somebody that you can't play as much at all? And then you also have to get into what are the other options. So it's the early returns are not good. I think the fan base and the Twitter sphere and all of that are a little too down on him. I'm gonna agree with that. In JMU 22, Pods isn't that bad. Kerr just places too much responsibility on the guy, but he signed up for it with his overconfidence. I think that's well said. I think that's really, really, really well said. The overconfidence. We talked about last year. He is kind of like Kuminga. Like they are very similar in that they both think they're better than they are. I think, and in their own way. And we've seen, I think, Kuminga shake a little bit of that off, and I think we need to see Pods shake a little bit of that off, and it's helped Kuminga. But I'm trying to figure what the best combinations are going to be. And I understand you don't want to start Horford, but then Steve Kerr pregame tonight said Draymond starting at center can't be an 82-game thing. And so he starts Quentin Post tonight. And so, but you're not going to start Horford. So now you're starting Post. But then Kuminga's earned it, and then and now you don't have the best players on the floor together. I think the Warriors have to get to a point, and I'm going to say it, and I think Jonathan Kuminga can handle it. I think the Warriors' best starting lineup for the regular season is Steph, Pajemski, Moody, Jimmy, and Draymond, and then you bring Horford in, and you get Draymond off the center spot at that point. You bring Horford in, and then you bring Draymond back in, and you play him either with Horford to close, or you play him with a big maybe at the beginning of the second quarter. You figure out ways there. I think if Kuminga is going to play the way Kuminga's played, I actually think he can be effective coming off the bench and be an energy boost and be somebody that maybe you give a little bit more rein to try and expand his game coming off the bench. But he also still has to be willing to do the little things and make the hustle plays and try to rebound and look to be a passer. The one thing that I think is a little more difficult with JK is he too is better when he plays with better players in terms of being willing to look to be a facilitator, right? It's one thing to ask Kuminga, in fairness to him, to be a facilitator with Jimmy and Steph out there on the court. It's another thing to ask him to be a facilitator when he's out there with a bunch of the other young players or lesser players. So there's that dynamic. There's a lot of these little dynamics that I feel like have to be kind of worked through. And the Warriors will have the ability to try and sort through it. I mean, a lot of it's going to be on Steve Kerr. All right, Kyle, let's get the best 5 or 6 Kyle's clicks here, and then we'll wrap things up tonight with an installment of not so fun with numbers. T. Smith, no Horford, and the Warriors get blown out by the Blazers. Pencil in a loss for every back-to-back. I'm not going to go that far, but who you play on the second night is definitely going to be important, and what style of team that you play and you know, how many guys are going to be out. Like tonight, I just think the Warriors expended so much, and it's early in the season, and the Blazers suddenly are kind of a bad matchup for them. I don't think the Warriors would have won tonight with Horford, to be perfectly honest. If they had, and you know what, if they had sat him last night, they would have lost last night too. So I think that's where you just take the win, right? Right, Kyle? You sit him last night, you don't win last night. And I think, you know, if you have him tonight, but I mean, I don't think it would have made that. It's not going to be pencil in a loss for every back-to-back, but I do think we're going to have to look stylistically more into the teams that the Warriors are playing than just overall record or talent level, or whether this is a team that's a contender versus a team that might be a play-in contender, which I think is more the ilk of where the Blazers are at. All right, let's get another couple of more here. LM, Dubs don't have the Niners kind of depth. Not to this point. I didn't think the Niners had the Niners kind of depth, but it turns out they do at this particular point in time, so credit to them. Rich Ray, maybe Pods can scrap together a shot at the scrapyard. Yeah, the whole game is easier when you make shots, but he isn't taking the right shot either, which I think is also a problem. Andis Brown, Kerr was the only one to speak to the media. They all wanted to get the hell out of Portland and come home. Andis, you're sharp, Andis. The only one to speak to the media in the press conference setting. A lot of times what'll happen, and I can tell you, a lot of times what will happen on the road, and I think there were only a handful of reporters on hand in Portland. A lot of times they'll just bring it into the locker room, and then the cameras are not in there and the podium's not in there, and you'll have to read a Nick Friedel or an Anthony Slater or a Joseph Dicus or a Danny Emmerman to get those quotes among the folks that are on hand as well, or listen to Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader, and we'll try to pass along who said what in the post game in the locker room as well. But yeah, it's a wash. It's game 3. You're 2-1. Get home, enjoy your Saturday, watch some college football, watch the World Series, and go back and have a light practice on Sunday. A couple of more here. San Jose Jazz fan 8, Kerr will be trading leashes between JK and Pods. Yeah, I think that's well said. Moving forward here on...
sorry, yeah, last one.
All right, that's okay. Last one.
Of the night.
Why would the Jazz want Pods? Is he Mormon? I don't know the answer to that question, but that is our Rusty Nail quote, our Dubs OT comment of the night. No, I don't think Markkanen's a thing anymore. I don't think Markkanen's a thing. However, I do think the potential to trade Brandon Podziemski could become a thing between now and the deadline, depending upon how all this shakes out. But it's way too soon to be talking about that. But Rusty Nail, appreciate you, our Dubs OT comment of the night. All right, let's get to not so fun with numbers here on this Friday.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right, Warriors lose it 139-119. They're 2-1. First set of back-to-backs, a split. Warriors last year were 9-5 in the first game of back-to-backs. They were 8-6 in the second game of back-to-backs. So they held their own in the second game as well. Almost identical within a game of the same record. So 0-1 now in the second of the back-to-backs. Warriors had won 9 straight against the Blazers. That streak had gone all the way to February 8th of 2023 in Portland. The last time the Blazers beat the Warriors, and the Warriors had won the last 5 in Portland as well as games played at Chase Center. And so we'll see moving forward here. 9 turnovers for the Warriors last night, 25 turnovers for the Warriors tonight. A completely different ball game. And one thing that is a little bit concerning, Portland is the 3rd straight Warriors opponent to shoot over 50% from the field. Defense is going to have to be a big part of this thing for the Warriors, and teams have shot it well against the Warriors. Again, it's only 3 games, still a small sample size, but teams have shot the ball well, and the Blazers did tonight. The Nuggets did last night, and even the Lakers to a certain extent did. Warriors' second lineup of the season without Horford, but without Horford, interesting. I'm surprised Kerr didn't just roll the same lineup out there, but he kind of gave a tell in the pregame when he said that Draymond starting at center was not something that could be an 82-game thing. So stay tuned as to how the Warriors shake that out. Stephen Curry was just spectacular again tonight. A game-high 35. He hit 7 of 14 from 3. And Steph Curry in these first 3 games of the season, I mean, he's over 100 in the first 3 games of the season. Just phenomenal what Steph Curry has done here to begin the 25-26 campaign. He goes for 23, 42, and 35. It's exactly 100 for Steph Curry in the first 3 games of the season. Impressive beginning to this thing for Wardell Stephen Curry, and it's the most that Steph Curry has scored in his career in the first 3 games, other than the year where he was the unanimous MVP when he had 118 points in the first 3 games of that season. So Steph's still playing at an all-time level. Moses Moody played in his first game. He was rusty. Quentin Post got his first start of the season. And, Quentin Post, a couple of boards and a steal in this one. 5 points, 4 boards, and an assist for Quentin Post in this one. Rest for Al Horford. We'll see which of the 2 games in the back-to-back that Horford is able to play coming up on Monday and Tuesday. All right, big thanks to the crowd here in the YouTube chat tonight. Lighter crowd on a Friday following a blowout. We'll get back to harmonic on Monday following the Warriors and the Grizzlies, and we'll be all over it here on the Sports Leader. Big thanks to Kyle Chung. Big thanks to Kyle Haar as well in our San Francisco studios. Am I leaving anybody out tonight, Kyle?
No, but even in a blowout loss, Kyle Chung's plus-minus was still positive.
Yeah, +1 for Kyle Chung tonight. +1. I don't know how he does it, but he definitely did do it tonight. So for the Kyles, I'm JD. Thanks to our callers. Thanks to our texters. Thanks to everyone in the YouTube chat. No Just Dubs tomorrow again, as the 49ers are going to be on the road here for a couple of weeks. We're going to get that going in the middle of November, tentatively here from Saturdays. It's going to be 11 to noon, and then eventually it'll be 10 to noon after our 49er forecast show with Larry Krueger when the Niner season ends come January or maybe early February. I know a lot of Niner fans would be pretty happy about that if it comes to fruition. I will talk to you on Sunday morning, bright and early. The 49ers and the Texans switching back to football. Adam Copeland and myself, we've got 49er pre- and post-game for you, 49ers and the Texans. So we'll talk to you Sunday, 7 a.m. Pacific, and we'll talk to you Monday night from Harmonic and Thrive City after the Warriors and the Grizzlies. It's JD right here, Dubs OT, as the Warriors lose it 139-119. Keep it locked right here on the Sports Leader. John Dickinson.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
Big audio quality show.
You are a sicko, and I appreciate you for it because I'm a sicko.
I just know they kicked our ass tonight.
No class, no balls.
Everything's gonna be all right.